If he craves you, why is he silent? Here's the shocking truth. Have you ever felt the undeniable pull of someone's desire, only to be met with silence? It's confusing, frustrating, and honestly, it can hurt like hell. One moment he seems completely drawn to you. His eyes linger a little too long. His presence feels electric, and everything about his energy screams that he wants you. And then, nothing, no call, no text, just silence. At first, you tell yourself maybe he's busy. Maybe something came up. But as the hours turn into days, that nagging voice in the back of your mind starts whispering, if he craves me, if he wants me, why isn't he saying anything? And here's where most people get it wrong. We assume silence means disinterest. That if someone truly wants us, they'll fight for us, chase us, and make it clear. But what if I told you that silence, in many cases, is actually a sign of deep desire? That his withdrawal isn't rejection, it's restraint, and that if you can understand why he's silent, you'll unlock a level of wisdom that will change the way you see relationships forever. This isn't about playing mind games or decoding mixed signals. This is about understanding human nature, and more importantly, how ancient Stoic philosophy explains something that modern dating advice often overlooks. Because the truth is, men, especially those who are deeply drawn to someone, can sometimes pull away, not because they don't want you, but because they want you too much. Now, that might sound crazy, but think about it. Have you ever wanted something so badly that it scared you? Have you ever held yourself back from acting on an impulse because you knew that giving in might change everything? For centuries, Stoic philosophers have studied human behavior, emotions, and control. They believed that true strength comes from mastering one's desires, rather than being controlled by them. And whether he realizes it or not, many men instinctively follow this mindset. They crave, they feel, they want, but instead of surrendering to those emotions, they retreat. That's silence. It's not always apathy. Sometimes it's discipline. Sometimes it's fear. And sometimes it's a battle within himself, a battle between wanting you and wanting to stay in control. So before you let frustration take over, before you assume the worst, and before you start questioning your own worth, let's break this down. Because once you understand the real reason behind his silence, you'll not only gain clarity, you'll gain power. And that changes everything. Section 1. Understanding the silence. What's really happening? Silence can feel like the loudest sound in the world when it comes from someone you crave. It's unsettling, confusing, and let's be honest, infuriating. One moment, the connection feels undeniable, almost magnetic. The next, he's distant, unreadable, like he suddenly switched off his emotions. And that silence, it starts to eat at you. Your mind goes into overdrive, replaying every conversation, every look, every touch. Did I say something wrong? Because here's the truth. Silence doesn't just create distance, it creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the hardest things for our brains to handle. But let's step back for a second. Instead of letting the confusion consume you, let's ask a different question. What if his silence isn't about you at all? What if it's about him? See, the modern dating world has trained us to believe that if someone is into you, they'll show it. They'll call, they'll text, they'll chase. And yes, sometimes that's true. But what people forget is that attraction and desire aren't just about excitement and action. They're also about fear, vulnerability, and control. And for some men, the deeper the desire, the stronger the need to step back. Silence isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's self-preservation. Maybe he's overwhelmed by what he's feeling and doesn't know how to handle it. Maybe he's struggling with his own emotions, and is afraid of losing himself in the intensity of it all. Maybe he's used to being in control of his life, his choices, his emotions, and now with you he feels something that threatens that control. Ancient Stoic philosophers understood this struggle better than anyone. They taught that desire, especially unchecked desire, can be dangerous, that it can make us reckless, impulsive, and irrational. That true strength comes from discipline, from mastering your emotions rather than being controlled by them. Now, does that mean every silent man is some kind of secret Stoic warrior, practicing ancient philosophy in his love life? Of course not. Most men don't even realize they're doing it, but instinctively they pull away because deep desire creates a sense of vulnerability. And for many men, vulnerability is terrifying. So if you're dealing with a man who seems to crave you, but then retreats into silence, understand this. It's not necessarily about losing interest. More often than not, it's about an internal struggle. A battle between wanting to let go and feeling the need to hold back. Between fear and surrender. And the real question isn't just why he's silent. The real question is, how do you respond to it? Section 2. The Stoic Mindset, Why Men Withdraw. If you want to understand a man's silence, you have to understand his mind. And if you want to understand his mind, you need to understand how deeply Stoic principles, whether consciously or unconsciously, shape male behavior. Stoicism teaches that emotions should not dictate actions. That true strength comes from self-control, not indulgence. That giving in to passion without thought is a form of weakness. And while not every man consciously follows these teachings, many have absorbed them in some way, whether through societal conditioning, personal experiences, or simply instinct. So why do men withdraw when they crave someone? Why does desire sometimes push them into silence, rather than pulling them closer? One of the biggest reasons is emotional control. Men are often taught that showing too much emotion is a sign of weakness. That being too attached, too eager, or too invested makes them vulnerable. So when they start to feel something powerful, something that makes them want to surrender control, they pull back, not because they don't want you, but because they're trying to regain control. Another reason, fear of losing themselves. Deep attraction isn't just about liking someone. It's about being affected by them. It's about feeling pulled in, drawn towards something that feels bigger than you. And for men who are used to being independent, who are used to being in control of their emotions and their lives, that feeling can be unsettling. They don't just fear losing control of their emotions, they fear losing themselves in the process. There's also the paradox of desire, the idea that the more you want something, the more it has power over you. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes from being self-sufficient, from not needing external things to feel fulfilled. And when a man starts craving someone deeply, it creates an internal conflict, because suddenly, he does need something outside of himself. Suddenly he's not in control. And instead of leaning into that feeling, many men instinctively step away, trying to regain their sense of independence before they let themselves fall completely. And then, of course, there's self-testing. Some men withdraw as a way to test their own strength. They want to see if they can resist their feelings, if they can master their emotions rather than be mastered by them. They may not even realize they're doing it, but at their core, they're trying to prove to themselves that they're still in control, that they can crave you, desire you, even want you desperately, and still hold themselves back. It's not always logical. In fact, to the person on the receiving end, it can feel downright frustrating, because in his mind, he's not just pulling away from you, he's pulling away from what he sees as a threat to his emotional stability. But here's the irony. The very act of withdrawing often makes the desire even stronger. Because absence creates longing,